It is Monday, August 25th, and brand new Dem party registration numbers released, and it is awful, awful, awful. The worst loss in confidence voters, actual registered voters, either party has ever seen in history. Wait till you see this. Also, the White House releasing more details about the corruption they're uncovering in D.C. and these damning new allegations tying the president of Mexico and her party, her political party, to the Mexican drug cartels. A real unbelievable story. Claudia Sheinbaum, their president, forced to respond now as the walls are closing in. So far, she's refused the help of the United States and President Trump to eradicate the cartels. I wonder why that is. Well, we're now learning why, and more stories as well from around the country.
Speaking of math, I do want to ask about a New York Times investigation showing that Democrats are losing registered voters in all 30 states that track party registration. We're putting on the screen the data. It shows altogether Democrats have lost 2.1 million voters. Republicans have gained 2.4 million. That's a deficit that you have of 4.5 million voters.
The Democratic Party bleeding registered voters. A brand new New York Times analysis showing between 2020 and 2024, Dems lost around 2 million registered voters. In that same time frame, Republicans gaining 2.5 million, leading the Democrats to a stunning, a record-breaking deficit of around 4.5 million voters. Something the New York Times is even saying could take them years to recover from. And it gets worse. Check this out. In the battleground states, the orange states on this map, Dems have an almost 15% voter deficit versus Republicans when you average them all together. Arizona, they have a deficit of 12%. Michigan, a 21% deficit. Pennsylvania, 11%. North Carolina, 14%. And Georgia, 7%. And that's only the 7 swing states. They also lost about 2.1 million registered voters in all 30 states that track voter registration by political party, which means it doesn't even include states like Texas, Missouri, Ohio. Those states, for instance, which are red states, don't track party affiliation the same way. This is the worst loss in registered voters either party has ever seen. Maybe going back around 100 years, they believe they may have seen something similar, but the data wasn't tracked the same way back then. I mean, this is truly unprecedented. Watch.
Look, the Democratic brand right now has about the appeal with the American voter as the Cracker Barrel rebrand has with the American consumers. Bad, bad, bad. What are you doing? Oh, my goodness gracious. What are we talking about here in terms of big party registration changes in the key swing states? Let's look at the key 4 swing states that, in fact, do keep track of registration by party. Look, the Republican Party is in their best position at this point in the cycle since at least 2005. In all 4 of these key battleground states, we go out to the Southwest. Arizona. How about Nevada? Republicans haven't done this well since 2005. Oh, my goodness gracious, at this point in the cycle. North Carolina, I couldn't find a point at which Republicans were doing better at this point in the cycle. It's at least this century. It probably goes way back in the last century. And Pennsylvania, very similar. Republicans doing better at this point than at any point this century, at least as far as I could find. Now, what types of gains are we talking about here for the Republican Party? Well, let's compare it to this point during the first Trump administration all the way back in 2017. Look at this. The Republican Party gains in party registration compared to this point back in 2017 during the Trump first administration. In Arizona, you got a Republican gain of 3 points. Okay, how about Nevada? Up the hill we go, even though we're sticking in the Southwest. A gain of 6 points. How about, again, we come to the East Coast, North Carolina, a gain of 8 points for the Republicans. And in the Keystone State, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, again, we're talking about a gain of 8 points. My goodness gracious, for Republicans, they are converting old former Democrats to their side of the ledger, as well as picking up new voters, registering new voters, and it absolutely paid off for them back in the 2024 election.
The data analyst who put this report together for the Times quoted in their piece saying, I don't want to have to tell you this, but this is the death cycle for the Democratic Party. But in this case, there seems to be no end. There's no silver lining or cavalry coming across the hill. This is month after month, year after year. It just keeps getting worse, he said. Yet, when you talk to Democrats, they haven't changed their messaging at all. The party itself, the loyal rank and file, believe there's nothing wrong. In fact, for some crazy reason, they seem to think President Trump's the one bleeding voters. Watch this clip from yesterday. Watch Scott Jennings just bust out in uncontrollable laughter after this. Watch.
It's pretty clear that despite the fact that Donald Trump has cratered, Republican, their brand has cratered, the Democratic brand has not recovered, and it's because
what are you talking about? What is the Democratic
trust.
Approval rating? Come on, be honest, brother. Come on, what's the Democratic approval rating and what's Donald Trump's? Come on, man.
So Scott and I actually might agree on part of this. The Democratic effort is very much dependent upon rebuilding trust with voters. And I think the way you do that is you show that you have the ability to fight, you show you have a consistent thing to say, and I think that's in progress, and I think Democrats would be wise to not ignore that.
They are living in a bubble, folks, or they think they can just gaslight us and get away with it. I don't know. Meanwhile, over at the White House, President Trump keeping his head down, cleaning up one mess after the next, releasing new details into just how corrupt our capitals become. When Trump first sent the National Guard into D.C. 2 weeks ago, he also simultaneously launched his own independent investigation into those fudged crime stats over there. Who, how, and why that was happening. How was that allowed to happen in our capital? Now, there was already a real investigation into that, but the White House doing their own review. Listen to what they found so far. It's pretty remarkable.
Because they've lost control of their place. Steve Miller, please say a few words.
Thank you, sir. So just to, first of all, follow up on what the Vice President said, no police officer working in the city can remember a time in their lives when there has been no murders. You can work at the police department for 20 years, 30 years, your whole life. We've checked the records. No one can even find a record of being murder-free for as long as we've been murder-free under President Trump's leadership. Additionally, and the President spoke about this before, we've uncovered, in the process of uncovering, a massive scandal in Washington, D.C. with the doctoring of crime stats. And the Department of Justice, under the Attorney General, is leading the effort to uncover this. But when we ultimately share the results, it will stun you. The extent to which, even though D.C. had the worst crime in America, honestly measured, it dramatically understated how bad it was. There's even accusations that murders and homicides were reported as accidents instead of murders. I mean, this is how severe the manipulation of the crime data has been in this city, and it will all be uncovered and it will all be brought to light. You know, I've had a chance to spend some time, as has everyone here, with the police officers in the city. Members of the public are going up to them and thanking them, just overflowing with gratitude, because for the first time in their lives, they can use the parks, they can walk on the streets. You have people who can walk freely at night without having to worry about being robbed or mugged. They're wearing their watches again. They're wearing jewelry again. They're carrying purses again. People had changed their whole lives in this city for fear of being murdered, mugged, and carjacked. It is a literal statement that President Trump has freed 700,000 people in this city who were living under the rule of criminals and thugs. And the last thing I'll say is that under the efforts of Terry, to my left and many here, what they found also is that the street criminals here in Washington, D.C. were doing business directly with the transnational criminal cartels, the foreign terrorist organizations. So not only was the city being run by these criminal thugs, but they were working with some of the most dangerous terrorist organizations on the planet to traffic weapons and drugs into this city. And what we are uncovering every day is shocking to us.
And the crazy part is they've been getting away with this for years. If it wasn't for Trump winning the election and for Elon Musk buying X, that's a big one. The media would still be able to just cover all this up. They just don't report it. They just skip over all these stories. It's very interesting, though, how these sanctuary cities welcome these cartel members, these gang members with ties to the cartels. It's also interesting how the NGOs used the cartels in Latin America, contracted with them to organize the flows of all of these millions of immigrants into the country. That's how they were doing it on the ground. They used the cartels for organization down there. That's how 10 plus million illegal aliens flooded into our country over the last 4 years. And now we're learning the Trump administration, in their attempt to cut the head off the snake down there by designating these cartels as terror groups, planning to use the military to strike their hotspots, cartel hotspots. We're now learning why the Mexican government's been so opposed to doing it, allowing the United States to do it. Claudia Sheinbaum has flat out rejected President Trump's help to eliminate the cartels, warning the White House even formally that any military intervention in Mexico would constitute an act of war. Well, it turns out Claudia Sheinbaum's political party, the Moreno Party, happens to be tightly linked and even controlled, some people say, by the cartels. And a brave, very brave Mexican senator just blew the whistle. Watch this and realize this is risky for her to do. This is not a safe thing to do, to speak out like this. She is putting herself in grave danger by doing this. Watch.
The president of Mexico is furious. She's calling Mexican Senator Lili Tellez a traitor for coming on Fox Noticias with me a few days ago and saying this. Listen.
The help from the United States to fight the cartels in Mexico is absolutely welcome, and that is how the majority of Mexicans feel. The only ones who don't like that President Trump is sending help and trying to support Mexicans against the cartels are the narco politicians. That includes President Sheinbaum.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum responding, saying, quote, "It's not a minor issue that a senator gave an interview to a foreign media outlet calling for intervention." Here to discuss is that Mexican Senator Lili Tellez. Senator Tellez, welcome to Fox Noticias. I'm just going to get right to it. Is Mexico a narco state?
Yes, it is. And we all Mexicans know about it. And Mexicans are afraid of the alliance between the Mexican government and the cartels that have infested our nation.
Can you explain this alliance between the president, her party, the Morena party, and the cartels?
Yes, the party has financed, has given, the cartels have given so much money to these politicians, narco politicians of Morena, to get into office, to get the power. So they protect. The Mexican government protects the cartels. That is why President Sheinbaum doesn't want the strong American leadership to help Mexico defeat the cartels. And also Sheinbaum doesn't want the rest of the world to know what is happening here in Mexico. We are on the steps to be the next Venezuela. She is aligned with Venezuela's dictator, with Cuba, and we are losing our country. They have destroyed our Republican institutions, the democratic state, and we must, I think we all Mexicans want and welcome the support of the United States to assist Mexican people against the cartels that have us all in this crisis with the traffic in fentanyl and migrants.
So her response to this, and I know this because her spokesperson came on our show in response to your interview, and they say, well, we just turned over 26 cartel members. We're working, we're sharing intelligence. What are they not doing? And why is she so resistant? She sort of speaks out of two sides of her mouth. We're working with you, Trump, and then she's chastising you for saying we need more help from the United States to crush the cartels.
Because she really doesn't want the help of the United States. She is lying to Mexican people, telling Mexican people that the United States will get in control of the whole country. Right. I never listened such nonsense from President Trump. What we have listened is that President Trump wants to help Mexican people against the cartels. Mexican people are suffering. So what they do is very, very little. We have huge narco politicians here in the Senate, in the presidents, governors. Mexico is a very dangerous place.
Well, that brings me to my next question, because you are speaking very bluntly, very clearly about Mexico being a narco state and the alliance and the connections to the president of Mexico. Are you afraid for your life?
Yes, I am afraid. And the president has threatened me to proceed against me with criminal prosecution to get me out of the Senate and get me in jail just because I told you in this space and Fox News what is the reality of our country with the cartels. The cartels are dominating everything here in Mexico. They are in all the offices of the government, in the states, in the cities, and in the national government. So, of course, I am afraid, but I want people to know I will not step back. And I pray under God's guidance that we, the United States and Mexico, must work together to defeat the cartels and to get freedom for our country, for Mexico, to stop it from being the next Venezuela.
Senator Lily Reyes, a very brave woman indeed. Thank you so much for coming on our show and speaking the truth.
Now, if you're familiar with Mexico at all, or Mexican politics rather, you already knew this. The cartels, everyone knows, are so deeply entrenched in the Mexican government. Anytime a politician speaks out like the senator that we just watched, they're just killed. From September to May, 34 candidates or aspiring political candidates were already assassinated in Mexico. Most of them linked to the cartels, cartel assassinations, who had spoken out against them. So yes, it's a real problem down there. And this is Mexico's one real chance to clean their country up. They need people to get on the streets, protest, speak up that they want Trump's help. Now, it may not matter. Trump could just give the green light at any moment. We know the CIA has been mapping out these cartels since he got into office. We covered last week how he signed that secret EO authorizing military force in Latin America and on those cartel strongholds, but he's clearly hesitating. They haven't struck anything yet down there. Not wanting to create an international incident with Mexico. He probably wants their blessing, and this senator speaking up helps a lot. From what I understand, it's very difficult to find Mexican officials to speak publicly about the cartels like this. The State Department, they have feelers out looking for more elected officials to join in. Hopefully we hear from more of them. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.